All right, guys, this is lesson 10 from the Human Resource Management in Healthcare course. All right, so today we're going to be learning about organized labor or unions. Okay, so we're going to be looking at an overview of unionization, the labor relations process, like how unions even formed and things like that, a review of legislative and judicial rulings, developments in organizing healthcare workers, and management guidelines. All right, so union. What's a union? A union is an organization formed by employees for the purpose of acting as a single unit when dealing with management. So the labor relations process is the process by which a management and a union jointly decide on and administer terms of and conditions of employment. So the union is where basically the whole or the employees of an organization decide that they are going to form a union, like a club, pretty much, and they're going to use that club and elect representatives to speak for them and negotiate things with management. Okay. So union membership in the United States. So from the 1950s to the 1970s, union membership represented about 25 to 30% of the United States workforce. That's a lot of people. So back in the beginning days when the unions just came out, it's really just around, like the 1950s is when people really started to get involved in unions and unionization, and we got to get together and, go after our rights. So a lot of this was happening. This is happening right when they also started, a lot of employees started incorporating a lot of benefits packages into their compensation system. So at this point, this is where people started to realize that they actually do have power in numbers, and they can all band together and negotiate a lot of their rights and a lot of the different packages and things like that, okay, in exchange. So they can negotiate a lot of even safer working conditions and just better conditions whatsoever, better policies, and more compensation, more things, okay? So that was going on around this time. However, as we progress into the future, 1980s, 1990s, union membership really decreased, okay? There's major decrease. So much so that at this point we're really low. I mean, by 2015, only roughly like 11% of the population was a union, was part of a union, okay? So, and in healthcare, actually, healthcare workers had even less union cooperation, okay? So, less union enrollment. So we see less and less people in healthcare not joining unions, okay? Less and less people not are trying to be in a union. So anyway, the labor relations process. So how does a union even become a union? Are you saying we can just get together with a group of people and start demanding things? No. I mean, yes, but no. You have to actually be recognized, okay? For you to really have power, you need to be recognized by the National Labor Relations Act. Now, yes, anyone or any group, any union, any people, group of people that band together can go through this process and be recognized as a union, and that way you actually have the negotiating power that you have. Okay, so how does this process work? Well, first of all, the National Labor Relations Act was created. This is the policy, and this is the policy, and it's the legal framework for labor relations or labor or unions. Okay, and this started in 1935. So this was formed 1935. Now the National Labor Relations Board is what oversees all the unions. Okay, they're the guys that approve of this. All right, so Anyway, moving down, the participants in the whole labor relations process are going to be the management officials, so the owners, the managers of the business, okay, the union officials, so the people in the union that we elect to represent the rest, everyone else, all the other employees. Then there's the government, and then there are third-party neutrals, maybe arbitrators, counselors, attorneys, someone else. Okay, so the National Labor Relations Board is pretty much who acts as the government, especially for smaller cases and whatnot. So they pretty much back the union up and kind of give them their authority that they have to be the negotiators for everyone and to negotiate with the management officials. Okay, so labor relations process, or the union process, how this the whole process of getting new policies in your job, or maybe new a raise or anything like that, any nice benefits for your employees and whatnot, you have to go through a full labor relations process before anything can be established. Any new thing can be officially practiced in your organization. Okay, so the process has 3 phases. First is recognition, okay, then negotiation, and then administration. Okay, so let's look at what recognition is. So in this phase, this is the very beginning. Okay, so this is the very beginning where the unions decide we are powering numbers, we need to organize our employees, and we need to get as many employees involved as possible. So this is where you try to solicit and get more of all your friends who work in the same business and everyone to band together and be part of the union. Now, how are you part of the union? You have to sign an authorization card. Okay, so when you fill out this card, it says that you designate the union to act as your employee representative. Okay, so if you're successful, then the groups of employees are designated. You elect a group of employees to be designated as your bargaining unit. Okay, and this bargaining unit is what is going to, they're given the power under the NLRA, the National Labor Relations Act. Okay, and they're the ones that are going to be bargaining with your managers. Okay. Now, if in the future you decide that this union does not serve my best interest anymore, it's not working for the employees anymore, then you can actually fire the union, okay, through a process called decertification. Okay, you can get rid of that union through decertification. Okay. Okay, so once you're certified as a union and then the union can start bargaining or negotiating for the employees. Okay, so once you're certified, unions negotiate on behalf of the employees, and this whole thing, the negotiation thing, is known as collective bargaining. Okay, so collective bargaining, the types of topics that you negotiate with when you're negotiating with the employers are going to either be mandatory, okay, mandatory issues, or they can be voluntary issues. Okay, so we classify the types of issues that you're negotiating, and so they can either be mandatory or they can be voluntary. The mandatory issues are those that have to be bargained, okay, that must be bargained. Those are the ones that are actually important for the for business operations. Okay, let me just put that up here so you guys know. Business operations, like the business can't afford to not negotiate this stuff. Okay, It's critical that they negotiate things that are important for your actual business operations because the business needs to continue operating. So those are mandatory issues. Some examples of a mandatory issue could be like, wages, okay? Safety regulations, all right? Things like that, okay? Things that have to be discussed because they're critical for the business to even work, all right? Then your voluntary issues can be bargained, okay, if both sides decide that they want to discuss them. So you can bargain the voluntary issues if both sides are decide that they want to discuss them. So one side can actually say, we don't even want to hear it because it's not critical to operations. Don't care. So that can actually happen. So voluntary issues, like an example of that can be like, we want more benefits, or like we want, better retirement benefits or something. So that's not really critical to operations. It's not critical to keep the business going, but I mean, yeah, it's important, especially to the employees. It's definitely important, and they definitely want to discuss that kind of thing, but it's not critical to operations, so that's why it's more voluntary. Okay, I hope you guys kind of get the difference. Anyway, so this whole collective bargaining thing, it can take on several forms. Okay, so first of all, concessionary bargaining, right here. This one is where the employer might ask the union to accept maybe a reduction in their wages or their salary because who knows, maybe there's some sort of financial crisis or financial constraints on the business. They're not making as much money. Maybe it's a slow season, or maybe coronavirus happened. Okay, so concessionary bargaining, this is where the employer asks the union, look, you guys, times is hard. Will you accept lesser wages? Okay, just to stay in business. If they don't, then you'll have to take, you'll have to figure out what to do after that. Because obviously, if there's no business, then how can you stay afloat? So you'll have to take other action. But this is just to see if your employees will be okay with having lower wages for, specific part, a certain part of time or whatever. Anyway, next, another form of collective bargaining can be integrated bargaining. Okay, this is when your the bargaining unit and the managers are getting together and they're figuring out what to do about their issues, and they arrive at win-win solutions, okay, where both sides are just happy. They're like, wow, we all get what we want. They figured out a way for everyone to get what they want, okay? Integrated bargaining, very nice. All right, next is distributed bargaining. Distributed bargaining is when there's a winner and there's a loser. Someone has to lose and the other person gains. The other person gets what they want, and then one side does not. Okay. And then an impasse could happen if both sides do not reach an agreement. Okay, if no one is okay with whatever's going on, then that can happen, which could lead to either a strike or a lockout, depending on which side is angry. Okay, which side is like getting the short end of the stick, right? So a strike is when the union or the employees are mad. They're like, we're not gonna take it, right? And so they strike, they'll do picketing and things like that, right? Now a lockout, that's when the employer's mad. Okay, that's when the employer's not going to take it, and the employers lock the doors, and they shut out the employees and they can't come to work. Okay. Next, we have the administration phase. Okay, so in the administration phase, this is, let's say, after the whole negotiation thing has happened, then, like, let's say they agreed on something, okay? So whatever happened during that negotiation phase, it needs to be put into a contract, right? And everyone has to sign it, and then you start putting it into action, right? So this is the administration phase. The agreement is signed, and the contract must now be administered. Everyone has to abide by the new policies. That's it. All right, so then if an employee, after all this has happened, if an employee feels like, look, the management is not upholding their end of the bargain, all right, a grievance can be filed by that employee, okay? If they feel like, look, you're not following the contract, what we just agreed on. All right, so, and then due process will follow that grievance, okay? And in some cases, you might need to get an arbitrator or like a counselor or like a mediator. So you might have to get a third party involved, okay, to try to settle this dispute. And many times when you go with an arbitrator, what really happens here is that on both ends, you guys kind of decide that you're going to do whatever the third party says you need to do. So, and then the third party will decide what is going to be the result, okay? So let's just say agree with third party's decision. Okay. So this is where you might have to bring in an arbitrator and let them handle the situation and just do whatever they say. Okay, so a union shop is an arrangement whereby an employee has to join a union after you're hired, okay? So you had to, back in the old days, sometimes there were jobs where you were forced to be part of a union once you were hired, okay? And then there was also an open shop. So an open shop is where no employee is required to join a union or contribute to money to a union as part of condition of employment. So open shop is like you do whatever you want. Closed shop is an arrangement where the employer of that business only hires people from the union. Okay. Now the Taft-Hartley Act came out. Okay. In 1959, 1960, one of those. It was around that time frame. Okay, so the Taft-Hartley Act came out, and it basically said you guys are not allowed to do closed shops. Okay, no, can't do it anymore. So you can't, and you also can't force people to do union shops either. Okay, you can't force people as a condition of employment to be part of a union. Okay, so it gave states the right to enact the right to work laws and prohibited union shops. All right, and also, of course, it's completely illegal to do closed shops. So pretty much they were very favorable about the whole open shop. Join the union if you want, or you don't have to. Who cares? It's fine. It's all up to you. Also, I want to bring something to your attention really quick, just a quick term, because I don't know if I put it in this slide or in this PowerPoint, but you guys need to know what fair representation is. Presentation. Fair representation. Okay, so fair representation is where the union, okay, the union will bargain, for higher wages or for whatever they bargain for, when they do their negotiation phase. And the thing is, whatever changes that's going to be made for that particular organization, whether maybe the union won and everyone gets a salary increase. Well, it's that salary increase is not just exclusive for the union members. It's not exclusive for those particular employees that join the union, and then the other employees who decided not to join don't get anything. It's for everybody. Fair representation. So the union will negotiate, and do everything for, fair wages, better stuff, safety regulations, more benefits, whatever they're bargaining for. And the union has fair representation. So whatever wins that they get for the employees, that's really for everybody. Okay, so do you get a salary increase? Everyone gets a salary increase, not just the union members. Okay, so that's fair representation. Everyone gets it. But those people who are part of the union, who actually pay the fees and to be part of that union, there are other benefits within the union usually that make it worthwhile to actually be part of the union. Okay, because otherwise just getting raises and things like that, yes, that's for everybody. The union can work for it and you don't have to pay your dues and you can just reap those benefits. Yes, so there is fair representation. Unions, when they bargain for things like that, it goes for everybody, not just union workers, okay, because of fair representation. Now, like for an example, like many unions out there, if like you join a union, some of the benefits of that particular union, because they might be big, okay, so some benefits of joining that union might be that maybe you can have like work-related injuries or problems at work or something, and you need to sue somebody. Okay, well, the union usually will have attorneys on retainer, and those attorneys will help you with your case. Okay, and you pay into it. You pay that those union dues, so you have access to those attorneys and you have access to that help and like those resources to help you with your case. Okay, you got that backup. And of course other employees who are not part of that union are not going to reap those benefits. So anyway, let's move forward. All right, so healthcare employees. What does this all have to do with healthcare employees? Well, healthcare employees, first of all, you never see very many healthcare employees actually being part of a union. It's just not as common, okay, as like other industries. However, there are many that join unions, okay? So in 1975, the healthcare amendments allowed for unionization among healthcare workers with special provisions for conflict resolutions and strikes. So healthcare workers are allowed to strike. They're allowed to be in unions. They're allowed to do things like that. But whenever you do have like a conflict resolution situation where, like, let's say all the nurses want to go on strike, there are certain rules for healthcare employees, okay? And the reason for that is because healthcare is super critical, okay? It's very delicate. People are not going to stop getting sick and having diseases and needing healthcare. Okay? People are not going to stop being in need of medicine just because the nurses all want to go on strike. So what has to happen is that anytime like healthcare workers, especially clinicians, physicians, nurses, technical employees, things like that, and of course the admin staff and maintenance even, and people who work in healthcare. So all these professionals, really, if they're gonna go on strike, if they have some sort of conflict resolution thing that they're dealing with their union, they have to plan this strike ahead of time. They have to give notice to their employers, look, I'm going on strike. We're all going on strike in 2 weeks from now. Okay, I think it's either a 2-week or a 10-day notice, right? So you have to give your employers notice because they need to actually hire substitutes. They need to hire temps to fill in for you, okay, while you strike, okay, because they got to prepare. I mean, you can't just close up the hospital just because they want to strike, you know what I mean? Because then those people are, you know, they need access to healthcare. So healthcare is a delicate situation. However, healthcare employees can be part of unions and they can strike and they can do things like that. There are just certain rules that they sort of have to go by just to make sure that the whole healthcare system doesn't fall apart and people aren't just, you know. Okay, so yeah, I mean, physicians as well, that's also kind of a special case because many physicians aren't actually employees, okay? So some physicians are self-employed, they're independent contractors or, you know, something like that. So they're really only eligible to be part of a union if they're an employee. So if they're employed by like a hospital or something like that, then yes, they can be part of a union and, you know, they can do strikes and things like that. But so physicians are kind of a delicate case, but that's the general rule. If you're not an actual employee, you can't be part of a union. And what we see mostly, or what I have seen in the healthcare field, is mostly nurses are in unions, okay, like other healthcare professionals. Nurses are usually the ones in unions. Nurses, of course, they experience like the highest level of job dissatisfaction in their field, which is very unfortunate. So many nurse unions have worked really hard to address a lot of issues that nurses have to go through, like reducing their workload, their working hours, a lot of their staffing issues. They have terrible staffing issues, okay? So things like that. However, I just want to let you guys know that over the years, the enrollment in unions for healthcare workers in general have always been decreasing. Okay, we don't have very many people trying to join unions, especially now. And healthcare has never really seen too much of a high enrollment compared to other industries. So anyways, that is the end of lesson 10, and I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot. And if you have questions, let me know.